Hello everybody, welcome to SayIntentions. I'm Brian, I'm the lead developer of SayIntentions, and I'm super excited to show you the setup and the process of getting this thing going. It is really easy. All right, I know this video is going to take a little bit, but it's because I'm going to spend a little bit of time showing you each and every feature. You can always fast forward to the spot where we actually set up the application if you want, so that you understand what each of the settings are for. But I'll give you a little bit of a longer tour of what's going on here as we go through this. This is exciting. SayIntentions is the only air traffic control system out there for flight simulators that uses AI. The only one. Everybody else that's out there is either using AI just for the voices, or there's no AI at all. Everything else out there is menu based. SayIntentions is the only one out there that's using a true sort of dynamic, situationally aware artificial intelligence sitting on the back end. You can ask it any question you want. It'll handle procedures. You can change things up mid-flight. Anything you want, and you can talk to it just like it's real air traffic control. There's nothing else out there like it in the world. So excited to show you this. The first thing you're going to want to do for the setup process is download the application. So we're going to go ahead and go here to the pilot portal. You'll enter your username and your password, and it'll take you to the account screen here. There's a couple things I'll show you on this main screen. One of them is this Windows lock resets. You put that on once you've installed it on a particular computer. You can come in here and change it to a different computer if you want by hitting that reset button. And second is the link to the Navigraph account. So this is optional. If you don't have a Navigraph account, don't worry about it. ATC, everything will still work great. If you do have a Navigraph account, it will use your Navigraph data and the latest data from the AirAct cycles from Navigraph. And you can use this to link your account, and that will take effect instantly. Even if you set that setting mid-air, it'll immediately start working. Over here on the left here, I also want to mention this as well before we go to the download, which is our Learning Center. If you're new to air traffic control at all, I cannot recommend this enough. Come here to see, getting started, doing your first flight, your second flight. There's some fantastic videos here about picking up a flight following, arrivals and departures from busy airspaces, things like that. This is worth your time if you're new to air traffic control. I promise you, you'll get so much more out of this product if you know basic phraseology and what things you can ask for and when you can ask for them and things like that. Because there are no menus, just like when you sit down in a real airplane, there's no menu that you press a button and it just calls up air traffic control for you. You do need to learn a little bit about how this all works. The good news is the AI doesn't care if you get it wrong, right? It's not judging you. It won't make fun of you. It's not going to get mad at you. But you'll have a much more fantastic experience if you learn the basics first. So it's very rewarding, by the way. All right, once you've got the gist of what you're doing, come over here on the left-hand side, and we're going to go to the download page. And setting this up is really simple. There's two things you can install. One is the application itself. The other one is our VR add-on. The application itself is really lightweight. Nothing goes in your community folder. All of the processing is done server side, so there's no impact on FPS. In fact, frankly, the simulator doesn't even know the application is there. So really lightweight and no impact on frame rate or stability. The VR add-on does go in your community folder. This is optional. You do not have to install it unless you want it, but I'll show you how it works once we get there. So let me go ahead and download the application. That's going to download a zip file, and once I've got it, it's actually really simple. We're going to click the arrow here, open up the zip file, and the installation is so simple. I don't even have to extract the zip file. I can run setup from inside the zip. Watch this. This is so cool. We're just going to run the setup directly from here. I do have to hit the thing and hit run anyway. It checks everything. I hit install, and that's it. So you don't even have to extract the zip file if you don't want to. It'll take care of everything else for you. Fantastic. The application is now installed. We're going to do the run anyway thing again. One of these days we'll pay the extortion fee to Microsoft to get rid of that, and the application starts itself up. That's it. We're ready to go. Now, the configuration process is really simple, especially compared to the way the configuration works in many of the other ATC programs. We're going to start by entering our email address and password. Input speech. This is important. This is the language or the dialect that you speak, that you want to speak to air traffic control with. You'll notice there's a lot of options here. If you're an American, you're going to choose English United States. But if you speak with a UK accent or an Australian accent or an Indian accent, whatever it is, choose one of these others. It will understand you better. The difference is marginal, but it does help. Also really cool, you can speak Dutch, German, French, Italian, all of these different languages, and the ATC will understand you. And not only does it understand you, it will speak to you back in that same language. So if you want to speak German to it, it will respond in German. Super cool. Nothing else can do anything like that. I'm an American, so I'm going to choose English United States here. If you do a lot of IFR flying, we're fully integrated into SimBrief, and you'll want to enter your SimBrief username here so that ATC can import your IFR flight plans. It's really easy to do. Just punch in your SimBrief username, and everything else will work. All right, over here on the right, we've got a bunch of checkboxes here. First one, student pilot mode. By the way, I can enter my SimBrief username there, so it works when it comes time. Student pilot mode does a couple minor changes to the way that ATC interacts with you. ATC will be a little bit more verbose. It will be a little bit more patient with you. Just a few little extras that you'll get when you turn this on. If you are not super comfortable with air traffic control, I strongly recommend that you turn this on and leave it on. It's really not that big of a deal. It does not do anything to change the authenticity of the experience. In other words, ATC still won't say anything to you or do anything that it wouldn't do in real life. It just makes the controllers more likely to say, give you more explanation or longer phrases. There's some sound effects, squelch tail effect, a ground loop effect. Always squawk mode C is an interesting one. For those of you who are already familiar with air traffic control, you understand that your transponder in most places of the world is expected to be in, there's actually several settings to a transponder: on, off, standby, and then there's two others. There's on, off, standby, and there's another mode called ALT. ALT is also called mode C. When your transponder is in mode C, it sends your altitude to air traffic control. I think there's some additional things that it sends as well. Most air traffic controllers around the world require that your transponder be in mode C. The problem is there are lots and lots of airplanes in Microsoft Flight Simulator that don't properly honor the transponder setting. So you'll see that you'll turn the little dial to mode C, but it's not actually in mode C. So if you're struggling to get air traffic control to see your transponder, you might come in here and force this to override so that it's always in mode C. If you want, you can set the application so that it's always on top. Some people really like that. If you're using that VR plugin that we talked about, this will change the font size inside of that VR plugin. In fact, we'll make it 14, 15, somewhere in there, in the middle. I'll show it to you here in just a minute. Moving on to the Identity tab. This is where we get to decide what ATC will call us. So we're going to put in our aircraft model and our tail number right here, and a long call sign and a short call sign. If you're familiar with air traffic control communications, you know that air traffic control, especially in the general aviation world, can refer to you by two different call signs. One is your full call sign. In this case, I have it set as Skyhawk 553 Alpha Zulu. Or in this case, let me just change it to the one that I like to use, 6788 Bravo. And so now that I've changed my call sign, and by the way, we're going to be in a Baron 58, so I'm going to type Baron up there. I need to set the long version and the short version. Why do we spell this all out phonetically? So that we can make sure that ATC is calling you exactly what you like to be called. Everybody's got a different way of doing this, especially when you get into different countries. So for my Baron 58, I'm going to type Baron 6, and I like to use dashes because the AI will pronounce it much more smoothly if we do 7, 8, 8, Bravo. But it is not uncommon for air traffic control to shorten your call sign. And if they do that, I want them to call me Baron 8, 8, Bravo. That would be correct in the US. But again, you can set this to the correct format for your country. If you're doing commercial flying, You might find that it's fun to come in here and set your call sign, etc., to the airline that you're flying. So we'll put Delta up here. The tail number does not matter if you're doing that. But now I want the long call sign to be Delta, maybe 1221. And there is no difference with the long and the short, so we're going to make them both the same. Delta 1221. And we'll make sure we spell it correctly. Cool, right? That makes sure that ATC calls me exactly what I want. But let's go back to the one that I intend to use here, which is going to be Baron 6788 Bravo. And my long call sign is going to be Baron 6788 Bravo. Short, Baron 88 Bravo. Notice I'm putting dashes in there. That makes the pronunciation smoother. Okay, that's what ATC is going to call us. Awesome. Let's go over to set up our audio. This is the headset setup. We're going to go ahead and come here. And I'm using a Black Shark for my microphone and my headset, so we'll select that. And we're going to select the microphone on the Black Shark here as well. There's some speaker tests you can do to make sure that it all works if you want, but really it's that simple. That done. The next step, and don't overcomplicate this. This is the best part. We get to map our controls. There's all kinds of different events we can choose from. The Com Radio push to transmit, that's the main one, right? When we squeeze the button, we're talking to air traffic control. We also have an intercom system, and there's an app on top, switch button, etc. I'm going to start with the push to transmit for the Com Radio. That's the main one, right? Don't overcomplicate this. This is really easy. We're going to click on it, and then now the next button that I press is going to be my push to transmit button. So I'm going to reach over to my controller, hit the button. There we go. That's now my push to transmit button. I'm done. I did it. There are a number of other events that you can choose from. One of them is an intercom push to transmit. So picture, you're flying along and you've got a passenger sitting next to you. You would use this to talk to that passenger. A passenger? What do you mean a passenger to talk to? Well, we have a tour guide that's really cool. And I'm going to show you a little bit more about that when we get to the intercom tab here. But just know that you can also map an intercom on-off switch. That's how you would enable the tour guide. And an intercom push to transmit button, which is how you would talk to the tour guide. Super cool, right? And then there's some app on top stuff. Some people like to be able to press a button on their yoke to put the app on top and then press it again to make it go away and things like that. But don't overcomplicate this. That's it. I've mapped the push to transmit. We're done. Let's go over to the multiplayer tab here. This is an important one. The first one is chatter. One of the design premises of the air traffic control system that we've built here with SayIntentions is that we really wanted this to feel like you're not alone in the sky, right? So there's several different ways that you can hear chatter. One of them is to just disable it and say, look, I don't want to hear other aircraft talking. I want it to be me and ATC, and that's it. No problem. Just set that to disabled. Canned only. So we do have a lot of pre-recorded chatter that we can play. And you go, well, that's silly. Why would I want that? Well, one of the training elements that pilots have to get used to is learning to hear their call sign amidst on a very busy channel, right? There's lots of airplanes talking, air traffic controls talking to lots of different people. Well, you have to be able to listen for them to talk to you. So the chatter is actually in the voice of your air traffic controller, right? So it's your ATC voice that is talking to all these other airplanes, and there's lots going on and everything, and you have to listen for the controller to talk to you. So that's what it's really meant to mimic. It's busy, there's stuff going on, and you've got to learn to pick out your own call sign. We also have multiplayer chatter. Now, if we turn on multiplayer chatter, this is really, really, really important because it confuses people. You will hear other SayIntentions pilots talking live, even if they're not near you. So you might be in Florida, and with multiplayer chatter turned on, you will hear other SayIntentions pilots who are talking at the same time. So if you're tuned to a tower frequency, you're going to hear other pilots talking to tower. It's neat, but it can be a little bit confusing, and some people don't like that it breaks the immersion. Okay, that moves us to the multiplayer settings. You are not alone in the SayIntentions world. You can disable multiplayer completely if you don't want other people to be able to hear you talking. Just shut it off, no problem. We totally get it. and no judgment if you don't want others to hear what you're saying. But it is kind of fun sometimes to be able to hear other people, so you want to put that in listen only mode, for example, or go ahead and enable that. Let everybody hear you talking to ATC so that we can make the experience better for everybody, right? So if you don't want to be part of other people's multiplayer chatter, etc., you can just turn this off. Now, if multiplayer is on, even if your chatter is disabled, this is really important, and there's other SayIntentions pilots within 30 or 40 miles of you, you're going to hear them talking to air traffic control. So if you're sitting on the ground in Atlanta and there's another SayIntentions pilot sitting on the ground in Atlanta talking to the same frequency you are, you're going to hear them talking to air traffic control. And they'll hear you talking to air traffic control. It's really cool. Same thing with CTAF. So if you're both at the same untowered airport and they make a CTAF call, you're going to hear that pilot. And not only that, you can talk to that pilot. So the SayIntentions world is not lonely. You are not alone there. But these settings help you set all of that. Okay, let's go ahead and set the multiplayer to off, but we'll turn the chatter to on. We'll see what we hear. Going over to the intercom, this is where you get to choose your tour guide. The tour guide feature is super cool. Imagine that you're flying along. This doesn't work well at high altitudes, but if you're flying in general aviation at lower altitudes, the tour guide will point stuff out to you that's around you. So they might say, at your 3 o'clock, there's the Statue of Liberty, and they'll tell you all about the Statue of Liberty. Or at your 2 o'clock, there's the Golden Gate Bridge. Or they'll actually get into details. There's this certain golf course, which is where this certain president played golf, right down there. All of the things that kind of look mundane or uninteresting from the sky become really interesting once you enable the tour guide. How do you do that? Well, you choose your tour guide. You got several to pick from here. They all have different personalities and different voices, so choose your tour guide. Come back to controls, and we're going to map an event. We're going to map the intercom on-off button, right, so that we can turn the tour guide on or off. Do that. Again, don't overthink this. Just press a button that you want to be that, and there we go. Now I've mapped button 3 on my wireless to be the intercom on-off button. It's that easy. When I turn my intercom on, tour guide is now available and will talk to me every 3 or 4 minutes while I'm in the air and tell me something interesting about stuff around me. If you want to be able to talk to your tour guide, ask your tour guide questions, which you can totally do. Stuff like, hey, what's that volcano in front of me? And they'll tell you, I was doing this around Hawaii. What's that volcano in front of me? Oh, it's the such and such volcano. And then I said, can I hike to the top of it? Yes, you can. In fact, there's these tour groups that will take you up there, and it's really cool to be able to ask questions about the things that you're seeing. If you want to do that, all we have to do is map an intercom push to transmit button. Click that. Again, don't overthink it. Just press the button, and we're good to go. All right, that's it. That's how you set up TourGuide. Really, really cool. All right, experimental. There's a few things in here that are worth mentioning. One of them is airplane model controls radio power. If you want the radios to honor the circuit and power that's flowing through the airplane and really get into that level of realism, you can turn this on. However, most airplanes this will not work with, but the study level planes often do work fine with this. And then, of course, you can choose whether you want to be on the primary server or our experimental server, et cetera, et cetera. I really don't recommend changing anything on this screen. Your experience will likely get worse and not better if you do. Okay, we did it. We set everything up. At this point, we just hit OK. And now it's time to launch Flight Simulator. So let's close this, and let's close our web browser. And I actually have Flight Simulator already running, so you don't have to sit there and wait. Let's pull this up. And the first thing I'm going to do to make things easy is we're going to go into settings, and I'm going to turn on this always on top button so that it stays right here with us. All right. In order to get everything functioning the way that we want it, we need to make a couple of changes to the Microsoft Flight Simulator settings. So let's drop that down. And let's drop into the settings for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And there's just a couple things that we need to change. So we're going to go into the assistance options. We're going to go to user experience. And there's several things here. They're all ATC settings. This ATC UI panel, turn that off. ATC Enforced Flight Plan, definitely turn that off. And then there's the, let's see, we got the UI. There's ATC voices as well. Turn that off. All right, you got that? Great. Let's go back and we'll apply. And now let's go back into assistance options. And now we're going to go to the pilot section. And in here, there's something that says AI radio communications. Turn that off. Once you've set all 4 of those things to off, you've now disabled the internal Microsoft Flight Simulator air traffic control. You really want to do all 4 of those, trust me. All right, let's go back. Let's get back into our simulation here, and let's pull the app up. And the first thing we want to do, frankly, is just call for a radio check. So we're sitting here on the ground in Truckee, California. And let's just dial up ground on 118.3. We got our radio here, 118.3. Enter. That's now the standby. We'll make it the active. And guess what we do? We squeeze our PTT, call for a radio check. Truckee ground, Baron 6788 Bravo, radio check. You'll notice that the speech to text didn't get it exactly right. Guess what, though? Once it passes through the speech to text AI,
Baron 6788 Bravo, Truckee ground, loud and clear.
It comes out perfectly. It knows exactly what I said, right? Super cool. Nobody else can do this. Okay, we've now got our radio check. Everything's basically set, and we're ready to fly. Truckee ground, Baron 6788 Bravo at the general aviation ramp near the transient parking, ready to taxi to the active. We'd like to do pattern work.
Baron 88 Bravo, taxi to runway 2 via Quebec. Golf cross runway 13 at Golf. Contact tower on 120.575 when ready for departure. Expect runway 2 for departure with the bypass departure for noise abatement. Pattern altitude is 7,000.